I got to review The Damned. I absolutely adored The Damned. It was a fantastic little way to kick off 2025. Absolutely. I think it was my first proper kind of horror of the year. Can you tell our listeners or our viewers a little bit about what The Damned is about, what it means to you, and why you wanted to tell this story in particular?
Well, I mean, what it's about. I mean, it's definitely about a it's about a person that has to make a very, very difficult decision and the repercussions of those decisions and hopefully the audience can, you know, possibly understand someone in a position like that, but also on the other side, they could judge that. So suddenly we have a very interesting conversation going on
Mm,
within a horror film. Uh, uh, Narratively, what the film is about, it's about, you know, a group of fishermen that are snowed in for the winter. They don't have enough rations, and they see a ship has sunk off their shores, and if they go save these drowning foreigners in the ocean and bring them back, they're snowed in for the winter. They're all going to
mm,
then starve and die. So they have to make a decision, and the decision is Eva's to make because it's her fishing outpost, and she decides to not save them and to take care of her own instead. And horror ensues, and it's about that. It's about her coming to terms with her decision, and will she uh, work through her feelings, or will she push her feelings down and double down and say we had no choice?
yeah.
Well, in fact, it was a choice.
It's a fantastic story to tell, and it's sort of I believe it's based on like Icelandic folklore, which is kind of your where you grew up, and you'll have heard these stories going through, but extremely timeless in a way with the story you're telling. Was that important to you that like people today could understand what these guys were dealing with?
Yeah, yeah. No, that's actually set in 1871.
1871. Okay,
Yeah,
okay.
yeah. Which, like, the only way you can actually see that is that you can see it on the cross where her husband had died, and he died the year before, and we had to put a number on the
Right.
cross. So, like, if you zoom in on it, obviously you can't do that in the cinema, but in the cinema it's actually much larger. uh, but no, yeah, but it's a very interesting time in Iceland at that moment where Iceland was always a very poor country, and we're talking third world poor. Things only changed in Iceland in the Second World War when the English and then the Americans came, and then suddenly they were building roads and we had infrastructure, and it was a very, very different time. But back then, very poor country. Um, it was a farming community. To be a farmer was the thing to be. Fishing, really not so much. They would send some of the people that worked for them, basically slaves, send them off somewhere to go fish in the off season because you couldn't really do any farming. So you had to kind of look into this, and then who would these people be that are sent somewhere in the middle of nowhere? And things really changed in Iceland. This is maybe boring people, but once they figured out how to salt fish, then they could actually fish during the summer because there was no way to preserve the fish when it was hot out because the flies would come
Yeah.
and lay their eggs. So once they were able to salt the fish, and how that works is that you salt it, and then whoever buys it, they dilute the salt in water. They put the fish in water on the other side. It
Hmm.
feels like a History Channel
No, it's
chat, but it's very interesting. And then you think about these things, and at certain points, we had these things in the script, and then you just start to slowly figure out, like,
yeah.
this is not what the story is about. This is very interesting history. This does not add anything, but it is good when you have these things and you've done your research, and you kind of, and then you take away things that are not adding to the what the lead is going through. You know, Eva.
Yeah.
But yeah, Iceland was a very, 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 very poor country, and so it was. I mean, even when I think about it, I understand when you're possibly someone's offspring, you to be born in Iceland, but to actually make a decision and to move here, nothing grows. There's no sun. The weather's horrible. So yeah, come to Iceland.
You've, I'll tell you what, you have sold it to me. To be honest, though, the movie itself does actually sell it because visually, and we'll talk about that in a second. Visually, this movie is absolutely phenomenal. But before we jump into that, I want to talk a little bit about. Obviously, you're on about the history of it all and the hardship of it all, which means your cast has to be well versed in what was going on, and they have to be ready to commit to that kind of conditions. And you were almost, it was almost an embarrassment of riches when it comes to your cast here. How did you go about getting Odessa Young onto the movie, Joe Cole onto the movie, Rory McCann onto the movie? Just how did you bring this stacked cast together?
I don't know. Like I guess I don't know. Pray to God. I don't know. Like win the lottery. I don't know. It's like, I mean, this is my first feature, so I
Yeah.
understand that it might be difficult for an actor to come on board a first feature because you can't go. I mean, I created a TV show called The Valhalla Murders, but it is a little bit possibly, apples and oranges in that way of like, yeah, but he hasn't made a feature.
Mhm.
It is a different thing, and you have to create a different thing for a film, like an atmosphere, a feeling. What is the feeling that the film gives you, and often TV doesn't quite have that kind of
Yeah.
thing to it. So they had to kind of just speak to me. Obviously, read the script. I worked with Jamie Hannigan, a fantastic Irish writer, and everyone that read the script, they were like, "Yo, this is fantastic." So that is the first thing. If the script isn't good, no one's going to want to work with you. And then you have to write letters to the actor, which is always an interesting thing where, obviously you watch everything you can that these actors have been in. And then when you approach them, you obviously send the script, but you send a personalized letter of
Yeah.
why I am interested in working with them, and obviously, and why they should work with me. I'm selling myself, but in a very nice way, I guess.
Yeah.
And then after that, it's a cup of coffee or a Zoom, and then I guess everyone, again, I say it's the script. If you don't have a good script, you can screw up a good script, but it's very difficult to make a good film out of a bad script.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I mean, maybe people have. I don't think I've seen that before.
It doesn't
Uh,
happen often. It definitely doesn't happen often.
I've never heard anyone say, "Whoa, the script was so bad, but the film came out good." I've never heard. Like it's usually like, "Oh my God, the script was so good. It's a pity we couldn't." Yada yada. But so yeah, but that's kind of the first, and then they believed in the script. They believed in me. They wanted to come to Iceland in the freezing cold and try out this experience, and I hope they all enjoyed it.
So that for me, your cast is incredible, and Odessa, I've only seen her in a couple of things. I saw her in The Order with Nicholas Hoult a little while back, and really really loved her in that. But the real star of this movie for me is the setting. It's the fjords. It's where you are. It's just the magnificence of the wide shots that you're able to have in here. Like almost every frame in this movie, or most frames in this movie, you could print out and put up on your wall. It could be a canvas. It's that gorgeous. What kind of problems? Because you're obviously practically shooting with this. What does that give you when you're shooting that way in these kind of environments? What kind of issues do you have, or maybe even happy accidents do you end up getting?
Well, we thought actually we were kind of nervous at certain points that, oh, will we have to have a second camera always on standby because will the cold, will it affect the
Mm,
camera in a way? So you have to think that never happened, thank God. We were shooting, on the ocean. We were also shooting in a swimming pool. to match to the ocean, because we can't really throw these fantastic actors into the ocean.
Of course
Well,
you
we can do
can.
it once, but there's not like take two. No, they were falling into lukewarm water.
Okay.
But then you have, will the lenses fog up? So then what are we going to do if the lenses are fogging up? So it's all of these interesting things. But it is, you know, it's actually when you're working so far away from like the capital of Iceland, uh, if you suddenly need more gear or stuff, we're talking if you can't fly, which it only takes like within an hour to fly,
Hmm.
it's going to take 9 to 11 hours, depending on the weather, to drive there with the gear. So it's not like, so we're going to need the smoke machine. So like, no, man, we don't, let's get a guy with a cigar off camera, uh, but so I guess you're all thinking in very indie terms. And if you got to go get a shot, but also like we used all of these things, which they all fed into the way I wanted the film to feel. I wanted to feel like a throwback. Um, I didn't want to do drone shots. I didn't want to do certain things that I feel like any influencer can do when they're walking out and,
Yeah.
and they can get these shots. I like, if we need a big wide, we're going to just have to walk up that mountain and get that wide,
Yeah.
and that's mostly what we kind of did, was trying to think, what if we put these limitations on us, will they add to the visual side of the film? And working with Eli Aronson, who is a magician, he's a
Nope.
master, and I was very blessed being able to work with him, and the way he also saw the film, and it was a great collaboration.
Because that was one of the things for me in talking about the collaboration. It's sort of this was your first like feature film, which, by the way, massively impressed. Like, because when it comes to a thriller horror like this, ambiguity and showing not telling is a huge part of it, and you've mastered that with this movie. Because at no point did I feel like I was being overloaded with information. I was getting told everything I needed, well, shown everything I needed to see. But that was like, I really just wanted to. I find it hard to put into words how I felt about the way you put this movie together, because you made me feel a hell of a lot with the vibe of the film, with the fear, the theme of the movie, obviously the guilt and the morality of this movie. You made me feel so much in a movie that I thought it's just going to be a group of people really cold all the time, and then you have those shock values. So that was one of the things I really wanted to. How did you move forward and sort of proceed in the terms of collaborating with your cinematographer, with your actors? How did you manage to show a certain level of what I would say is restraint and not just over egging the pudding? How did you manage to accomplish that? What was your approach?
Well, it's interesting. There's one thing I haven't really spoken a lot about, is the editing also.
Yeah, yeah.
Because one cuts a lot of things out when you go there. You think sometimes you need exposition, you need this kind of, we need them talking about this, and we do have explanations of what the Draugur is, and and there are conversations about that hopefully add to the world of it, but there was more kind of talk about what's going on, and the nature of editing is that we were just slowly every week trying to hone it, to try and see can we get this feeling without having them talking about it. Can the music help us go from this feeling to that feeling? And again, you talk about restraint. It's music. When do you have it? When do you not? You're doing a psychological horror film, but period. And I didn't want to do something that had like music that you didn't even notice. I didn't want to have. I wanted it sometimes to swell up. I wasn't trying to underscore oh, here's a sad moment or something.
Mm.
I like as you can really easily by with a I don't know strings or a piano piece, but it was more kind of in the bigger moments,
Yeah.
allowing myself to kind of go big because I was trying to do a throwback kind of film, and I really enjoyed that. Some people might like it, some people might not. Some people like the music to not have any personality and just be there to support the film. I love it when I can put the music on Spotify or the film is
Yeah.
playing in the room and I know a motif. I like that. Like if you watch The Shining, the opening, dun, 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 like it's like yeah, you know exactly what it is.
And one of the moments you have like that in within the movie, it's something I was watching another movie a couple of weeks ago, and I actually complained about it in my review. I was like, there's a moment where there's a couple of characters talking to each other, and the music just becomes so overpowering. But with you, you have this moment in the movie when everybody starts kind of arguing around the table, and you're just kind of focusing in on Odessa. The music's kind of coming up and up and up, and it just adds absolutely everything to the movie. It's one of those moments where it's like sometimes less is more. It doesn't have to be more is more. Like, and I love that. So I just want to point that out to you as well. It's a great little. I think you've done I really think you've done a fantastic job with this. I really do. What do you, when people leave the theater or after having watched The Damned, what do you hope they take away from it?
Take away from it. I mean, it's a very difficult question to answer. I mean, I hope you feel sorry for this woman and what she's gone through. Even though she made that decision in the beginning, I hope you have empathy towards this. But I also, some people think I should have gone harder in with the ending of ambiguity, or I think it still plays with
Yeah.
that side. Some people feel like I should have gone harder on it. It's a fine line, ambiguity.
Mm.
You might feel cheated when you're like super vague, almost like you didn't know what you were trying to say. So I would love people to kind of talk about I felt that meant this, you felt that meant that, and it's difficult when you talk about the ending and we're talking
Yeah.
about it
Yeah.
now. They haven't seen it. So I'm trying to. I think it's more, because it is Eva's story. She makes this decision. She's trying to work through it, and I feel more bad decisions do come, but from the right place.
Yes.
So it is hopefully they feel that they've watched an interesting character study of a woman that has yeah, it's difficult. I can't
Yeah.
really give it because it's difficult who watches it, how they take it. So it's I would just love it if they went to see it.
Absolutely, absolutely, and we really do hope everybody watches this movie. I tried to champion it on the YouTube channel. I was so impressed with what you'd done with your first feature. It kind of blew my socks off a little bit. And with that leads into what you want people to take away from it. Like, I want to understand you as a director, your first feature, you have 100% went the easy way, by the way. Let's just say that. You haven't at all. You haven't. You put yourself through the mill. What do you think you maybe learned about the filmmaking process during this movie? Or more importantly, what do you think you maybe learned about yourself through this film?
First thing that came to mind when you said that is I felt so blessed with the team I had around me. I never felt like I was alone. Like there were certain things that went wrong. Like we were in the middle of nowhere. I couldn't achieve certain things that were in the script. So you have to pivot really quickly.
Mm.
I never felt I was alone. I always had Emily and Camilla, who are the producers of this film. We met in film school. So we've known each other for almost like 10 years now. and Jamie, the writer, and then just having that kind of team because things went wrong. We had to pivot quickly, and I think that's I from the stories I've heard from other directors. Sometimes you feel totally alone. Sometimes you do not gel with your collaborators, your producers, and there you might be working. To make a different film. They're making one film, you're making another, and I just think sounds like Jesus Christ, like that's an ulcer, there.
Yeah.
But so yeah, I would just say that I think I learned that, or that's what I kind of felt after making it. But I guess what I trying to remember what your question was, what I would take into the next project, possibly, it's always just everything that I've made. I've tried to make something that is more difficult than the next, and difficult doesn't mean difficult for difficult sake. It's actually narrative wise. It's setting. It's character. It's something that I haven't done before. It's a different genre. I don't want to make the same film twice. So having made my shorts and then having made the TV show Valhalla Murders and then this, that's kind of what I want to take into the next thing is just trying to drink up all my mistakes that I made and then I had to try and fix in the edit. So yeah, that's kind of what I'm mainly thinking these days.
Well, it's the old thing. You're not growing if you're not learning, and it sounds like you're definitely picking things up. And to be fair, I think with that film, with The Damned, you've absolutely smashed out of the park for out the gate, basically. So I'm really excited to see what you do next. And with that in mind, I'll end with this question: Is can you tell us anything about what you are working on next, or is that all hush hush nowadays?
I am working on a couple of things. I love my collaboration with Emily and Camilla, the producers on this film, and with Jamie, the writer. So we are cooking up something new, but totally different. Like again, what I said, I like totally different. Like almost like you would be like, "What? Isn't that this?" And that's what I want.
Yeah.
It's a totally different genre. It's comedic in certain ways. So yeah, I kind of don't want to say more, but it's one has to try different things, and the filmmakers I love are the ones that don't just stick with a proven formula that they're good at. I'm this guy, I want to try, and make new things.
Well, Thordur, this has been absolutely fantastic. Thank you so much for sitting down and doing this. Again, I reviewed The Damned. I love The Damned. People can check that out in down below in the videos. But also, please do check out the movie. Where can they find The Damned? Where can people find it and get it watched? And we'll kind of just wrap out there.
Yeah, I mean, in cinemas near you, I think just Google where it's a limited release, but you can find it. It is out there, but I think you'll have to just Google what the closest cinema is near you. So yeah.
And I'll put all links in descriptions and everything like that, and make sure people can find it. But honestly, I sat down to watch this movie because I like a bit of gothic horror. I like psychological thrillers, but most of all, I love Joe Cole. That was kind of like my main thing. And I sat down and I got this really just masterful, impressive film, and to the point where I wasn't even watching Joe Cole, which is kind of the point, because to a degree, the actors aren't really the stars of the movie. They're just kind of there to help move it along. Not saying anybody gives a bad performance, because everybody's fantastic in the film, but that is the sign of a great movie, is that they kind of just let it flow and let it go and did what they had to. And Thordur, thank you so much for giving us this movie and letting us see it and bringing it to the world.
Thank you. What a lovely chat. So thank you for saying all these lovely words.
And I can't wait to see what you do next. I can't wait to see you going forward. And you doing comedy sounds great, by the way.
Well, like it's Jamie Hannigan is writing it, so I'm just the one trying to help the actors along.
I
It's
kind of
all
love
about
it
the
though.
script and casting. So yeah.
It's almost perfect. I thought you were going to say I'm doing the next Fast and the Furious, which I would have been angry.
No, that'd be my third feature. Let's see, like Fast and the Furious in space or whatever they're doing next.
I mean, who's to say we can't? Who's to say we can't?
Exactly.
My friend, thank you so much for this movie, and thank you for doing this today. And I look forward to seeing what you do next.
Thanks, man.